I'm going to give 1 moment just to see if we can capture some more folks. So thank you for joining us. We'll be underway in approximately 1 minute. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Robert Holden, Choctaw Chickasaw, Deputy Director of the National Congress of American Indians. Excuse me. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon on this Native Vote webinar. We've been doing a series of Native Vote webinars this year, and we've got a few more to go. On our website, you'll find the forecast for some of these topics. Just let you know, on September 13th, we'll be doing one on Native Vote Action Week. Native Vote Action Week we've designated, or it's been designated, September 26th through the 30th. And within that, on September 27th is National Voter Registration Day. So stay tuned for that. We've got a great lineup today. We're joined by Anawake Rose, who's the esteemed Executive Director of National Indian Education Association. She's been over there 3 years, done a tremendous job. So we really appreciate her coming here by way of Arizona State University. She's from Oklahoma, Cherokee, Muskogee Creek, and she's actually worked at NCAI. And we missed her, but we let her go because she wanted to go to lead NIEA, so it's been terrific. So also join us and on the back end, perhaps, if we have time, with Nick Courtney. He's a Senior Program Associate with Inspire program over at the Native American Political Leadership Program at George Washington University. And FYI, in the room is Whitney Thorny, Cherokee, and she is one of our fellows, who's helping coordinate the Native Vote Project, done a terrific job. She's on the front lines at NCAI regarding Native Vote, so we're really fortunate to have her. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anawake. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. NIA is really happy and excited to be joining Native Vote and NCAI in this. A little bit about me, so you might know why. In one of my previous iterations in my career, I worked for an organization called Kids Voting. And I did that while I was in Arizona, and I just got a passion for civics and for social studies and ways that we could be engaging our tribal citizens and our tribal youth in a conversation that encourages them to be active political campaigners, right, within their tribes and their communities, their states, and nationally. So to be able to see that work grow from years and years ago, and I'm not going to date myself, to today, and what we're able to do with Rock the Vote and NCAI and Native Vote has really been inspiring and a dream and a fantastic passion to see to come to fruition. So let's dive right in. So, Native Vote statistics, and for some of you that might be wondering why in the world the National Indian Education Association is interested in doing this. You all know that our population is young and we are growing fast. In fact, we're one of the fastest growing U.S. populations. We have grown 9.7% between 2000 and 2010. So that means of the 5.1 million total Native population, and that's American Indian and Alaska Native, our population is over 3 million in voting age. But that's just about to increase. That's going to increase 32%. So those under the age of 18 are going to be rapidly hitting our school systems and are going to be rapidly needing to have some information around civic engagement, voter, and democracy. And NIA wants to be there to help our schools, our educators, our teachers, and our youth be equipped with all of the resources that they need to be informed voters. So, what's the importance of Native vote? You all should know this because I think NCAI has done a tremendous job of broadcasting this and sharing this information. But, real quickly, we know that Senator Tester won his seat by a really small margin, just over 3,500 votes. And with 17,000 ballots cast in Montana's 7 Indian reservations, I think we can pretty confidently say that Indian country swayed that vote. In 2010, Senator Murkowski in Alaska became the second person ever to win a write-in campaign, and she credits the power of the Alaska Native vote to her victory. And Senator Heitkamp from North Dakota, she won her seat by just over, almost 3,000 votes. And we can credit that to some of the high Native voter population that turned out on the reservation. It was over 4,000 votes. So we know just from those 3 races that Native vote matters. And if we're going to be talking about ways that we can build this 5.1 million voters, this 32% increase in our Native population that's 18 and under, we're going to have to be thinking about ways that we can engage our Native youth. How can we get them interested in what's happening? So our challenge is, how do we create lifelong and informed voters? We know for too many Native students that the idea that they can influence decisions made by the federal government, by Congress, and by the president either seems too abstract or too far out of reach. And frankly, in many cases, it may seem too irrelevant to their current lives. So it's our jobs as educators to relate the national political conversation to our students' personal lives, to show that link between what happens at home, in our communities, to state and national government. We're going to be doing that by combining and showing a link to sovereignty and to tribal sovereignty. We know that by building a solid foundation in tribal sovereignty, our students will gain a basic understanding. And we're going to be doing that through key concepts in dual citizenship, community responsibility, treaty rights, Voting Rights Act, and talking about the challenges that Native students face in voting. When Native students begin to understand how they can influence change at tribal, local, state, and federal levels, they'll feel more empowered to participate. So NIA has partnered with Rock the Vote and NCAI to enhance civic curricula. Native vote lesson plans are not going to add an additional burden. We do not want our teachers or our schools to feel like we're causing any more stress or anxiety. We already know that you have a lot to do. So what you're going to find with the lesson plans that have been created is that they naturally enhance the materials that you already are going to be teaching within your classrooms. They're designed to assist educators to teach about the unique importance of Native voting, and they're not tribal specific, but they create foundations for a national understanding. Now, this is Anna Wake Rose speaking, not NIA, but I would suggest that your obligation as an educator is not to maintain some abstract form of balance in the classroom, but to really help students become critical thinkers who learn to listen to others, evaluate their statements carefully and respectfully, and support conclusions with evidence. We know that there are just certain ways and types of thinking that are going to be happening within your schools and within your community. And you're going to be able to engage that and really bring that out through the lessons and the lesson plans that have been developed through this curricula. So let's talk a little bit about what is a Native Vote lesson plan. So we start in grades 2 through 5, and we have basic learning objectives. We focus these around the essential standards for grades 2 through 5 in social studies or civics, because while they generally focus on a few key areas, states have adopted a national essential understanding. And those key concepts are how events, individuals, and ideas have influenced communities, and then understanding the context of these events, people, and places, the development, structure, and function of local government, and then how citizens participate in their communities. And those basic essential standards and understandings have been built in through the Native Vote lesson plans, and so they're enhanced through general concepts, such as introducing the type of elections, tribal, U.S., state, and local, practicing to cast a ballot, understanding the importance of record keeping, and character education. Each of these learning objectives is very easily built into your essential understandings that you're already required to be meeting for grades 2 through 5 in social studies or civics. So a couple of examples of ways that you can use these, and we're going to talk about, or these examples are just on character education. So there's multiple other examples within the lesson plans, but just for character education, you can ask your students, for example, to make a list of presidential and or tribal council responsibilities. Then you can ask them what kind of person should be a president, or what kind of person should a tribal leader be. That really drives to the conversation of our social and emotional well-being within our communities and focuses on character building and education that meets those basic learning objectives. But you can also be thinking about this within the current landscape. And I would encourage you not to shy away from talking about the current election. This is something that your kids are talking about at home and in their communities, hopefully. And so being able to draw current context within your classroom is going to be very important to get them interested and engaged. By using examples such as how would Sitting Bull or Wilma Mankiller or any known tribal leader in your community vote in the 2016 presidential election, you're going to have an idea of talking about values and characters of the candidates and talking about the big picture role of the president and the nation and the state and what that person brings to your community and your tribe. Students will be allowed to be encouraged to use their imaginations to consider other people's experiences and to be able to think about and express and explain views that are not their own. This example specifically asks students to think about what qualities voters should look for in a president. And then you can poll the class and compare students' responses to the national poll. This is also a really good example of ways that you can bring in charts and graph analysis. So you can be thinking about pulling in other current concepts in the common understandings and essential learnings that you're going to have to be doing in civics and social studies. So grades 6 through 8. The essential understandings in general around social studies and civics for grades 6 through 8 focus on understanding the political, economic, and social influence of historical events, issues, and individuals, understanding the development of government in various civilizations, societies, and regions, and explaining those behaviors and practices of individuals and groups influenced by society. The learning objectives of the Native Vote lesson plans were built to enhance these general concepts through expanding civic understanding and defining a republic, in researching tribal and U.S. political candidates, in researching and developing effective campaign slogans, and examining purpose and impact of tribal constitutions and U.S. constitutions. So in thinking about researching tribal and U.S. political candidates, a couple of examples that you could be using within your classroom. you could brainstorm a list of informational resources on candidates. You could conduct a scavenger hunt or collect samples, or frankly, the lack thereof, of campaign material, and then have a conversation within your classroom about the candidates and their reach and their breadth and depth of reach within your local community, your tribe, and your city. Again, don't be shy of pulling in the current landscape. You can think about these examples in the lesson plan and the basic learning objectives and pull in what's happening in the current political campaign. So we could talk about how the media has affected the current election. We know that media bias is always raised by candidates or parties, or as one of the reasons for trailing in the polls or for losing in an election. In using this example, you could distribute newspapers and have student teams identify headlines from national or world news, pull in your tribal paper and talk about what's happening within your tribal paper and how those teams can think about headlines that are specifically impacting tribal elections. Teams can list headlines on large posters and then explain their selections to the class. At the closure, you can discuss similarities and differences in the areas that the team chose and how they arrived at consensus at those most glaring issues. This will allow you, go back one slide, Whitney. This will allow you the opportunity to talk about things that might be really challenging in the current political campaign. How are women being spoken about? How are minorities being spoken about? In a way that puts you in a non-biased position and really allows your children and your students the opportunity to expand things from their point of view and allow them to develop their critical thinking skills. And this is one of my favorite parts of the curricula because I remember my very first election, and the first election that my parents were actively engaged in, or at least yelled at the TV about, and this was the Carter-Reagan election. I won't tell you what grade I was in because that dates me too much, but my parents were very concerned about the Carter-Reagan election, and so what we learned about at school was one contextual a piece of information, and I would go home and it was much, much different than what my parents were talking about. And while that might have created an uncomfortable environment, it also created a really fun place for me to learn and to hear my parents' political points of view that I might not have understood completely at that age, but created this place and space for me to engage with my parents in a way I'd never had an opportunity to do before. So Native Vote is a fantastic way to build parental, child, and family communication. The ideas that they learn at school are carried home, and they're real-world ideas. You can talk very directly about your tribal council, about your tribal representatives, about your mayors, your school board, your senators, your president, and how those elections are impacting your family and your home. It helps to encourage dialogue with multiple generations if you encourage your students to go home and interview your family and to bring that information back to school. And then one of my favorite pieces, most elections are held at schools. So your school is a great place to hold a mock vote. What a great way to get your child to understand and to already participate in the voting if you have a mock election for them to be able to cast their ballot while mom and dad are casting their ballot. They get an I voted today sticker, and then your classroom can tally those votes, and you can compare how your vote fell with a national or with your tribal elections, and then have that conversation about what was different and what was similar. Chances are it falls fairly down line, but it still creates this great space and place for you to engage with your families and bring your families into the schools to have a great conversation. Ultimately, a Native Vote curricula and a lesson plan increases political awareness and citizenship at tribal and national levels. And through this, we're helping develop self-confidence to successfully deal with life changes. We're giving our youth a voice in the life of their schools and the life of their communities and society at large. and we're enabling them to make a positive contribution by developing the expertise and experience they need to claim their rights and understand their responsibilities as tribal citizens and as U.S. citizens. There we go. So we do have some resources available. You can go to the nativevote.org webpage and you can find the lesson plans that I highlighted, as well as some basic curricula examples and mock walkthroughs. You can also find a lot of valuable information for your school on the Rock the Vote webpage. And then For Directions Vote is a great resource for our schools and for our students. If you have any questions, NCI is a great resource to turn to. They have nonstop informational webinars that you heard Robert talk about earlier, and you're going to be able to really pull from the information that they share and that they post on their website to help you develop real life and real world examples about what's going on. But I would also encourage you to think about Native Vote above and beyond the national elections. Your tribal elections are taking place frequently, maybe in some places annually. You have school boards that are being voted for. You have state races that are being voted for. So there's multiple opportunities to get your children engaged in the election process and have them to really debate and consider their tribal space in place within that conversation. The more informed we can make them now, the greater that voter turnout is going to be when we have that 32% increase of our 18 and over voters. So NIA is really excited to continue to build our partnership with Native Vote as we think about expanding our curricula, hopefully next year into high school, because we would love to get those kids actively engaged in a process to get them registered to vote while at school. Whitney, that's what we have. We would love to turn it to Nick.
Before we do that, Nick's going to talk about some of the things that he's been looking into regarding, demographics and potential of Native student voters or youth voters. But before we go there, I just want to see if there might be some questions, anything related to Anahuac's insightful presentation. Okay. We seem to be good. Okay. Do you want to read the question and then we respond?
Sorry, they're technical questions, and that's not something I can help with. I am just not that person. So what I can tell you is that this webinar will be available, and Whitney will be emailing it out, and I'm sure it will be posted on the NCI webpage. And if anybody would like some of the notes or the other pieces of information that I spoke about, I'd be happy to share those as well.
Okay, well, we'll go over some other things, but next we'll turn over to Nick Courtney. Again, he's the project director for INSPIRE, Native American Political Leadership Program at George Washington University. He's had some teaching experience in the Philadelphia school system, which should be a challenge in itself, but nevertheless, Nick?
Hello, and thank you, Robert, and thank you for having me. Again, my name is Nicholas Courtney of the Makah Nation in Washington State. I have my master's in teaching from Western Washington University, and I've had teaching experience in Washington State and Philadelphia, and I'm happy to be here. I just wanted to recognize and kind of echo what Anahuac was saying, with that this curriculum does not take away from or add anything but is meant to be supplementive to what teachers are currently doing. Currently, in public schools across the country, there are 35,459 seniors, and that makes up 6.5% of our public school education. Now, these are students that do not attend BIE or tribally controlled schools, yet public education, and we see that number on the rise. Again, 35,000 are seniors, 42,000 are freshmen, so we can see that influx and that population gain with that. With those, I encourage you all to look at individual states such as Montana and Washington, who have their own native tribal curriculum and see these resources as very beneficial and additive to those resources. So check your state to see if your state has individualized tribal curriculum that are encouraged to be used by and verified by your local tribes. Again, we see the amount of increase, and we also see that 15 states in particular have 80% of seniors in public schools. I will not name all of those states, but states such as Oklahoma, Arizona, California, New Mexico, Alaska, Texas, Michigan, Wisconsin, New York. So when you have Native students in your class and having them being able to see themselves in the class curriculum and the importance that we all know that that has on students. So that's all that I wanted to share. I look forward to continuing the conversation with all of you and see what else comes down with these webinars. If anyone has any questions, you can connect me via Whitney, and I will see the notes and check those as well. But thank you, and Haishka for having me here today.
Well, do you have anything to add? Would you like to? Turn over to Whitney. Sorry.
Hi, this is Whitney. I just wanted to mention on your screen you're seeing some information and resources we have on nativevote.org. So we're really excited. First, I want to mention that we have a great tool to register online on our website. So if you go to nativevote.org, and let's say you're having a registration drive at your school for maybe senior level students who are wanting to start register to vote, you can just have this page on our website pulled up on either a computer or an iPad, and they can just fill it out right there, and then their information is registered. We also have a really great tool to share your Native Vote story. So we'd love to hear about things that you're doing in your community and different activities that you're doing. We'd love to be able to share that on social media as well. So other people in other communities can get some good ideas about things that are successful. Like, for example, we've been having some photo challenges. People are having different rallies to get out the Native Vote. And we'd love to sort of get some feedback on that. Or if you know someone in your community that would make a really great Native Vote coordinator, we'd also love to have them sign up as well. There's a great form that you can fill out on the Native Vote website to do so.
Thank you, Whitney. It doesn't need to be stated, but I'll state it anyway, that we all know and understand that Native Vote and the components go well beyond this, but you know what we're doing is establishing the intro sort of to Native American and Alaska Native students. But I guess at some point, perhaps in your curriculum through the school semester or year, whatever that might be, and you start to interject those things regarding civil rights and Voting Rights Act and those sorts of things, and to, you know, it's your discretion on to how far you go in talking about the challenges that Native people still face in accessing the polls in terms of convenient polling locations, in terms of IDs required by the state. There are some challenges regarding IDs, and at this moment in time, we seem to be turning the tide back and winning, but nevertheless, there's intimidation factors out there. So, but I guess that's something that they will learn, but I just, you know, don't want anyone to be surprised to go to a poll and find out that there are these sort of ramifications that these things can happen, and how we provide that information or that awareness to Native youth and students. That might be, something that certainly you know more than me about doing. So, but I just also want to say that thank you so much for what you're doing, and the continuity of Native Vote that you are assisting. The payoff is significant. We've already seen the benefits, the participation, the acknowledgement by candidates at every level, whether it's school board, county level, county commissioner, Native legislator, whatever that those candidacies and those outcomes are. We're beginning to reap the benefit of that. And by the way, I think there's probably around over 75 state legislators who are Native across the country. So we're making inroads at every level, but it's due to no small effort by you. So thank you so much for what you're doing, continue to do. And whatever we can do at NCAI to answer your questions on Native Vote or other related matters, or whatever questions you have, please let us know. I know all of the folks who have been with us today, they have a commitment to Indian country. They have a commitment to Native Vote. And we also have a commitment to Indian country for whatever you want to call upon us to assist. So thank you so much. Has anything come in?
I have a question about reaching high school students.
Okay, there's a question, but it seems to be.
So we did have one question that came in from somebody asking about some high school level curricula. And unfortunately, the Native Vote lesson plans only go up through 6th through 8th. We are excited and looking for opportunities to be able to expand that curricula in the coming years, but right now we don't have anything. However, don't be discouraged. There is so much information out there around civic engagement and participation for schools. The organization that I mentioned I worked for previously, Kids Voting, is just one such place. While these are not Native specific, you know your communities well enough that they're fairly easily adaptable. And if you have challenges in doing so, please reach out to NIA. You can reach us at nia@niea.org, and we would be happy to help assist in doing that. Again, almost all lesson plans that you can find, you can really have a very easy opportunity to translate them so that they're aligned with your core curricula within your classroom and that easily meet the needs of your tribal students. But we would be happy to assist.
So does anybody else have any more questions for us today? All right.
Going once, going twice. All right, well, thank you again, and best to you, and let's get those Native votes out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.